and recording next a discussion with Mr. Andrew Greenwood in connection with the Westall sighting. So we'll just, if you'll want to sit down here, and I'll sit over here. I need a little bit more light. That's a heck of a chair, but I guess we can sort of grade here. I've read some of the material that Paul and Peter have sent me, so I know a bit about it, but I think it's well to just go over the whole thing. The date of that was, what, do you recall it?
No, I don't recall, I'm afraid.
I'm
Interested for you to tell me.
Westall is April 6th of 1966. And where is Westall?
Westall is situated between Springvale and Clayton. One of these places. It's just to the high school, a couple of shops, and a house, and that's about it.
And what's the name of this? Is it the Westall School?
Westall, W-E-S-T-A-W-A.
Is the Westall School? Is it
High School. Westall High School.
How did the whole thing unfold then? What's the sequence?
Right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, I remember back now. It's. I think the first thing I heard of it was I was teaching. Most unusual for another child to sort of run into the class without warning. That's what happened. One girl raced in and said, "Mr. Greenwood, quick, flying saucer outside, etc." And I got rid of her because I wasn't going to leave my class or anything.
Oh, you were in the midst of class?
I was in the midst of teaching a class, yes.
Oh, she broke into the closed class. Oh,
yes.
That is rather unusual.
It is unusual, yes. I wasn't the type that one would normally do that to either. She left, and it was about recess, I suppose, 5-10 minutes later. So I thought, well, I'll wander out and have a look. She was the type that I thought, well, she's a fanciful type of little girl, and I thought, well, I didn't really pay any attention to her, but I'd wander out anyway. Mm-hmm. And I went out, and there must have been more than half the school, about 300 approximately of the boys and girls of the school, on the oval, which is beside the school buildings.
Excuse me, half of the school amounts to 300, or the 300 in the school? So about 600 in the school.
Approximately 500-600 in the school.
So on the oval. Mm-hmm.
They're on the oval, looking. What direction would it be? I'll orientate myself now.
Yeah.
So it's west, east, south.
And the object was still airborne then?
Oh yes. We were never sure at any stage that it was anything else but airborne. Although some of the children say that they saw it later, but I'll get to that. I'll get back to the point out. I think the first thing I can say is I observed the object that everyone was looking at. It took me a while to see it. Grey against the coming on to autumn, blue-grey sky. I couldn't see it immediately. As everyone saying, "It's there, you blind." So I finally picked up what they were looking at.
Was it quite small in size?
It was, well, when I said, well, the only thing I've got to compare it against is later on there were some small aircraft, Cessna size aircraft. It was approximately 2/3 the length of one of those.
How far away were they? That makes the difference.
Yes, of course it does. Now they were about. When they were there, it was they were sort of circling it. They were.
So the absolute size is known.
It is approximately 2/3 plus or minus a bit. Now it was just at any stage to me cigar shape, cylindrical cigar shape, except on occasions it appeared to bulge in the middle.
It's changed shape?
Yes, changed in this. The best way I can describe this: hold a, I won't say saucer, I'll say plate. Hold a plate on edge and it looks straight across. Tip it slightly and you see it bulge in the middle. That type of effect. I can't say that's what was happening, of course, but that's what it appeared to be.
You didn't have a distinct impression of whether that was the cause.
I didn't know whether that was the cause or whether it actually was bulging in the middle, top and bottom.
Okay.
But that's what it looked like.
How far away do you think it was at that time?
Now, that's another point I have to think back on. I don't know if I've ever given a distance before. If so, that's probably more accurate than anything I can think of now. All I can say is that there were, from where I was standing, it was about 100 yards to the pylons, so about, or going on for 1,000 yards at furthest, I would say.
Maybe half a mile.
Half a mile, yeah. That would be when it was at its furthest distance from us.
Okay.
The closest it came would have been, I suppose, half that distance.
So you saw it there. Was it hovering, motionless when you saw it?
Well, it did several things. It did hover at different times. It seemed to be able to accelerate and disappear out of sight, and then someone would see it over in another part of the sky, through an arc of, I suppose, 20 or 30 degrees away from us. In other words, it moved considerable distance very rapidly. And then it would move back again. As I mentioned, it came towards us. Not that we could see it actually coming towards us, but we could see that it was closer now than it was before. It did hover, as I mentioned. It could go up and down. When it could move slowly, but generally it seemed to hover or move really fast. We did see it moving across slowly on a few occasions. One of the big points that I got out of this was the fact that it was on its own when we first saw it. And the next thing we noticed was the presence of one of these light planes. I say Cessna type, I don't know what it was exactly. A light plane which approached it and then seemed to try and move around it. The object moved over to another part of the sky very rapidly, followed it over, moved back again. It seemed to be playing a cat and mouse with the plane. Then more than one plane arrived. At the end, I think it was counted there were 5 planes there. Although, as you probably heard, Moorabbin Airport denied the presence of any planes, or they actually denied there were any planes in the air.
Is that the only possible airport, Moorabbin Airport?
I think that it could be. Moorabbin is very close. It would be 4 or 5 miles away. And the next one, where any, particularly 5 aircraft, I mean, obviously one bloke might take off from his back paddock or something, but not 5. And I really think it's the only airport that could be considered.
And you haven't a clue as to why they would deny?
Particularly, it's rather silly they would deny it. And that if you ever go out near Moorabbin, there is never one spot during the day. I drive past there several times a day, going back and forth between the 2 schools. I'm a different school now, I'm at Havenwood College. And there is never a time when there's not planes taking off and coming in. So I think it was rather a silly statement for them to make that at that particular time there were no planes in the sky. But, we saw them all right, 300 of us. We did, one thing I forgot to mention, at one stage disappeared behind a tall row of pine trees. And it would appear that it went behind them reasonably close to these pine trees, approximately 600 yards from where we were. We later went over, and another member of staff and myself walked over in that vicinity to have a look and see if we could see. Lots of the kids, of course, left the fence. There were reports from several groups of the children later on. They'd seen one of these typical nests, but I didn't see one myself. It would be the perfect area to see one in, lots of long grass.
Did that, the aircraft came, we had the aircraft in there. What, did that process go on for many minutes?
Well, I suppose if we count the 10 minutes from when it was first seen, as I said, by this group of girls at a phys ed class who were on the oval. Now, of course, it could have been there before they noticed it. As I say, I didn't even notice it myself for a while. So it was, it's one of these things that once you see it, then you go on seeing it. You know what I mean? But they're hard to pick up. I think it was just the silvery colour against the sky.
And then after you saw it, how long was it in sight?
Now, 10 minutes there, and it disappeared. 25 minutes it was in sight for.
And how did it disappear?
Well, this is one thing we just don't know. It vanished.
All of a sudden,
Yeah.
while you were all looking at it?
No, it did one of these, sudden accelerations, and then nobody could pick it up again. It was gone.
You did see it accelerate. It
Oh, yes,
didn't
yes.
disappear and it went so fast you didn't follow it.
We couldn't follow it.
That terminated. Were the
And that
aircraft
was
still
all we
there?
saw. Yes, the aircraft was still there. I can't remember what happened to those. I know they were there then, but I just can't remember what happened to the aircraft.
So we've got it was cigar shaped. What ratio of length to width and so on? Find this ratio. Was it
I
like
would say
pencil or
finger shape more than anything else. About the ratio of the thickness of the finger to the length of it. It's the middle finger, something like that.
So maybe 4 or 5 to 1, something like that. Not 10 to 1.
Something like that.
And it was silvery gray. You say
Silvery
so it's hard to see
grey.
against the grayish cloud.
That's right. Yes.
No sound.
No,
Nobody heard the sound.
Now, there were all sorts of reports of different things. One girl said that she'd seen the thing on the ground and it was, this sort of shape with little windows around it and all the rest of it. But I don't really know how much you can put in her story. There was a report of some sound from it, come to think of it, but only from one girl who was supposedly close to it. I heard nothing, and there was no sound to hear when we were all standing in a large group watching it. But as I say, lots of them jumped the fence and went off after it. I only left the fence and went after it disappeared.
You mean it went behind the grove of trees?
It went behind this is before it disappeared.
Yes,
It
and that's when
went
they got
down.
close to it, allegedly?
Well, this is supposedly when they got close to it, yes.
What time was this recess?
About 10:15 recess started. That's right.
10:15.
Yes.
Were there any persons off the school grounds who saw it?
We never heard any reports of this. This is one thing that a few of us tried to see or find out about, but we never could find anything.
How many teachers saw it altogether?
The phys ed teacher says she saw something but won't say anything more. Yes, I think Claude Miller, the senior English master.
Claude, C-L-A-U-D-E.
Yes, Miller.
Miller, senior English master. Was he the one who went across the field with
That's
it?
right, yes.
He saw it in the air?
Only the very last, he came out just as it was going. The other one, Jeanette Muir, the phys ed mistress, she was there when it was very first seen, right
She's
at the
the one who
beginning.
said she has clammed up a bit?
Yes.
Jeanette, G-E-N-A-T-T-E?
Yes, that's right. Muir, M-U-I-R.
And this business about the headmaster, is this a woman or a man?
Man.
What's his name?
Frank Sambleby. S-A-M-B-L-E-B-L-E.
S-A-M-B-L-E.
B-L-E.
Sambleby.
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 Yeah. Sambleby.
And he's the one who seemed to be quite influenced by some pressures to keep things quiet, or was this his own?
Well, I think it was probably whether or not he was influenced by some pressures or not. We know the Air Force came to the school. Whether or not anything was said to him, I don't know, because of his own volition. I know he had a special assembly lunchtime because lots of the children were back late from leaping the fence and going to look for it. And told them a whole lot of rot the whole thing and be, and some people who believe anything, words to this effect. And
was the Air Force in there before that recess?
Oh, no, they didn't come for about 2 or 3 days.
So that couldn't have been blamed on the recess, on the Air Force.
Oh, no, I'm saying he
had a special assembly.
Special assembly at lunchtime. Which, no, perhaps I'm going to correct that. He had at the assembly that we have an assembly in the morning and afternoon. The assembly, he had a special little blurb he spoke about this particular incident.
You said it was a lot of nonsense?
Yes.
Why?
I was accused of suffering from the effects of a hangover and a few things, which I
How do you
wasn't.
rationalize that? Is he is it simply because he's this kind of a guy, or?
Well, I don't know. He is rather. So he is rather. I can believe that he would say this sort of thing.
Why? Because it would disturb the tenor of things?
Possibly, yes. He's one of these people. This is possibly how you can describe it, is that he's one of these people that runs his school on the book. And if it's not in the book, you don't do it. And there's no UFO sightings in the book, how to handle them. So therefore you ignore them. This would be his type of thinking, I believe. It was his first year as a head last year, and everything was being done just so. And we noticed this on several occasions, that he wasn't prepared to accept anything that didn't quite follow regulations. I think from his manner and in other things, you can explain his attitude in this case. He's that type of person.
Yeah. Well, then the Air Force came, and did he reiterate these?
Not to the school. Not to the school. He just told me that an Air Force officer had been out to the school, and I was teaching at the time, and he told me that he wasn't going to interrupt my class so that I could speak to them, and promptly told them to get lost, I gather. I gather that they can't have had much time with him, because I know I was very friendly with the senior master of the school, the second in command, and he said they were only in his office for very few minutes, and Sambleby had sort of come out fuming and muttering, what rot, and all the rest of it. I gather he sort of told them that there was a lot of rot, and forget it. And this is all pure conjecture on my part.
It's nice to have somebody telling the RAAF that it's a lot of nonsense and sending them packing. That's a new variant of the theme, isn't it? They deserve it. Victims of their own propaganda here. Telling them
Yes.
Get along. Okay, well, is that the main outlines then of the...
I think so. I don't think there's anything else.
You're presently teaching where?
At Haileybury College. The Haileybury College.
H...
A-I-L-Y B-Y
E-Y...
B-U-R-Y. Haileybury College.
B-U...
B-U-R-Y.
R-Y College. What do you teach?
Science.
And what is your... What town do you now live? Where do you live now?
Oh, 395 Waverley Road, A-V-E-R-L-E-Y, Mount Waverley.
Pardon?
Just phone number.
What is that?
Oh, what is the code? I think 3149 or something, I think, is the postcode, yeah. I never remember it. The phone number is 277-3011.
277?
3011.
What was it, 3049? Mailing code?
Yes.
Oh. Well, is that about, we hit the high spots on this, do you think?
Yes.
It's a lot of witnesses.
Yes.
303,
Yes,
to say. Yeah.
Because a lot of them were infused with the ideas of little green Martians running around. Of course, they'd say anything. But there were a lot of the senior students there.
What was the age span?
Oh, well, it would be the whole school, which would be from 11-year-olds up to 14, 15-year-olds. 15, some 16-year-olds, I suppose. 16-year-olds. 3 members of staff. I think there were only 3. There may have been others, but if they were also going to just shut up and not say anything.
Yeah.
I know there were 3 at least. I think does seem to cover all the ones that I can think of. There was the one, of course, that amused me the most was amused isn't the word, but intrigued me most was the Moorabbin Airport plane. One only has to sit beside Moorabbin Airport, the road that leads beside it, and watch the planes coming in and out, and then listen to their plane that there were no planes in the air.
Have you ever gone personally to talk to them?
No, I haven't. Who was it that ran? I think Claude Miller. But they were also contacted by, the Dandenong Journal took this up. Have you seen that?
Yes.
Their reports?
Yeah.
Well, the young person who took me after that story he was very interested and went out and saw them and saw all sorts, interviewed dozens of people from the street who lived there in that area.
And found nobody who saw it.
Found nobody who saw it.
Strange.
Well, we thought so too. Although I must emphasise that it was this, you can, I think, believe this, in that it probably only was by chance the first person saw it, and then someone else pointed it out to them, and then we could all see it. But if it wasn't pointed out to you, it was hard to see. It was purely the effect of the sky. It was no figment of our imagination or anything. We could see it, no doubt about it. And it looked real. It was no. It was hard to explain what I mean by this, but it didn't look as though it was a reflection or anything like this. It looked real.
Yeah.
Because one has no ways of deciding that something is real. It's just whether we get the impression that it's real or not.
Well, very good. I appreciate your talk with you.
Well, I find it a fascinating topic, particularly in terms of the whole. It would be fascinating anyway, but it's even more fascinating. Perhaps it's just my perverse nature, I think. But if people try and hide things, I want to find out more about them. So it's this sort of. Well, it must be just my perverse nature.
That isn't. I must confess that doesn't particularly do anything but annoy me in this case. Maybe I've gone beyond the limits of when I can be intrigued by that. I've just seen too much.
Well, this is just the way I always feel. If someone wants to hide it, curiosity killed the cat or something like that, but still, it's just a tremendously fascinating.
Yeah, it's not really clear whether they're hiding anything or just so confused that they don't dare make any statements about it altogether. There's a lot of evidence that it's just.
But nobody knows, so they'll shut up anyway in case.
Yeah, play it safe.
Yeah. Let's not get ourselves in if we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, just keep quiet until you have something to talk about.
Doesn't do anybody anyway, still.
Yeah. Okay, Andrew, thanks
Right.
a lot for that. Talk with you. Wish I could tell you what it was. Well, they're real. That's the end of the taped interview with Andrew Greenwood, Melbourne, Wednesday, June 28th,